In today's world of growing uncertainty and profound change, the relationship between China and Europe has never been more important. As we mark the 50th anniversary of China-EU diplomatic ties, how both sides seize opportunities and challenges and work together to address these global issues is drawing world attention. We are honored to have Charles Michel, former President of the European Council, to share his insights.
Thank you very much, Ms. President Michelle, for being here. So to start with, my first question is, this year marks the 50th anniversary of China-EU relations. So looking back, what has changed the most? And do you see more challenges or more cooperation?
First, I think it's a very important moment. The 50th anniversary of the relationship between China and the EU, this is a perfect occasion to have a fresh look at our partnership, but also to identify what we can do in the future to deepen our partnerships. There are differences between China and the EU, but this is absolutely certain that what matters, this is more stability, more security, more predictability, and we want more prosperity for our people. It means that in the future, we have, in my opinion, to identify what are the joint priorities. Climate change, global health, on all those topics we need China and the EU working more together to overcome those challenges. In terms of economic development and economic partnerships, there are some challenges we face on both sides, and we have to talk to each other. We have to see how this is possible, to take into account our legitimate interests on both sides, and how is it possible to prepare new plans for the future.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we see the world is getting more divided in recent years. So do you think the China-EU relationship is more important than ever now?
I have the privilege to have served 10 years in the European Council. I've had the occasion to participate in all UN meetings the last year, all the G7 and G20 meetings. And in my previous position, I've had the occasion to observe, not only to observe, also to try to act and to defend some fundamental principles that are important for the future of humanity, in my opinion. And what I see today is a systemic shift. We have to make the right choices. We have to make fundamental decisions. I have the impression that China, the EU, and the rest of the world, we are at a crossroad. And the question is very simple. Do we want to cooperate more? Do we want to consider that we have major common interests as one humanity? Or do we think that only the national level could be the right level to solve problems? If you take climate change, for instance, climate change doesn't know any border. And without international cooperation, we will not manage to overcome this challenge. And this is a threat for the future of humanity. If I take global health, this is extremely important to work much more together in the future to prevent disease, but also to identify what we can do when we face a major crisis, so that we can support our citizens all across the world.
Yeah, there's also concerns over globalization and the global trade, and we see U.S. just put a 90 days pause. So what's your take on that, and what will happen after that?
The European Union's DNA is very clear. We believe in international cooperation, we believe in free trade, and we believe in fairness, we believe in reciprocity, and we believe the WTO has to play a very important role, and it's why we are strongly in favor of the reforms that are needed within the WTO. The dispute settlement mechanism, for instance, it's an important pillar to support the future of the WTO, and we have also responsibility on the EU side to do our own homework, especially in the field of competitiveness. We have some challenges. We need to improve our regulation. I think we also have to invest more massively in the future. And that's why we need to develop some financial tools to inject more financing in some strategic sectors like energy, the digital infrastructure. And once again, I think that more international dialogue is needed. and the right choice is more cooperation, not the opposite.
And also the US is EU's top car export market. So there's a lot of talks going on right now. But how much it might hurt Europe's economy if the negotiation doesn't go well?
I think that the trade war is not the right option. On the contrary, and I even the impression that those who are attempted to launch a trade war could be affected by the decisions they are making themselves. And it is absolutely clear that if there is a temptation to put in place additional tariffs, additional barriers, then it means that there is a serious risk for more poverty for everyone. And it's not what we want. We want the opposite. And that's why we are always open to have a dialogue, to discuss, to identify what are the concerns, what are the legitimate interests. But on the other hand, the EU has also its own concerns and interests. And we are always ready to respect our partners, all our partners, but we want to be respected as well.
China and EU also have started talks on setting the electric vehicles prices. So how do you see this step forward? What kind of signal that?
Between China and the EU, there are many topics where we can cooperate a lot and where it is possible to deepen the cooperation. But there are also topics where there could be sometimes some frictions and some differences. I know that there are some efforts on both sides to find some solutions. And I'm in the camp of those who sincerely hope that some acceptable solutions will be found.
With so much changing globally right now, where do you see China-EU ties heading next?
I think that a lot will depend on China and on the EU. And this is our common responsibility. This is our joint responsibility to decide what we want for the future. Do we want more openness to the rest of the world? Do we want more engagement? Or do we want to focus on ourselves without taking into account the cooperation that's needed with the rest of the world? You have understood that, in my opinion, what we need is more cooperation, more multilateralism, because in a multipolar world, we need an efficient and an effective multilateralism. I don't underestimate that we have our differences. I don't underestimate that in Europe we have sometimes some concerns, and it's important that we have the occasion to engage at a diplomatic level, to share our concerns, to listen to each other, and to see if some compromises are possible to make steps in the right direction.
And I also believe people-to-people connection is also another very important aspect to it. So do you have any suggestions or words, especially for the young generation?
I'm absolutely convinced that the people-to-people contacts are vital, are fundamental, because in the long term, these people-to-people contact will bring our societies closer to each other. And the young people, the young generations, they have a special role, a natural responsibility, because they are the leaders of tomorrow. And they are those who will build the world of tomorrow. And it's why the more there are spaces, occasions to meet, frameworks, so that we can meet in person, that we can understand better your society, your reality, your cultural traditions, and vice versa. The more it will be helpful to facilitate this mutual understanding, to facilitate this collective intelligence. I think this is very dangerous when we do not talk to each other. And then if you don't talk to each other, there is always a risk that you become suspicious. And sometimes you think that your counterpart on projects, on some ideas, maybe it's not the case. And this is the beginning of more mistrust. And when you have mistrust, you have the risks that there will be more tensions. And then you are not in a position to solve the problem.
And my last question, and it's on a more personal note. You have visited China many times. So what impressions stand out most to you every time you come back?
The first impression is related to the Chinese people and to Chinese society. I'm always impressed by the warm hospitality that I receive when I'm here in China. I've had the occasion to work on behalf of Belgium and then on behalf of the EU with the Chinese leadership. And I've seen it is possible to exchange views. We are not always and systematically on the same page. There are differences, but it's very important to have a framework that allows us to talk to each other and to think together what we can do in the short term, what decision can be made in the short term, so that we resolve problems and that we manage our differences in a responsible way.
Thank you so much. That's all the questions.
Thank you.